Ladies and gentlemen of Knucklehead Nation, welcome to another episode of the Fighters Rep podcast. And I am absolutely blessed to be joined by a guy who doesn't need any introduction. It's the legendary at this point, David Huey. David, how are you, sir?
Good, brother. Good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Man, thank you so much for joining me. You know, David, I don't even know how to introduce you, man. You've got so many titles. Producer, right?
Yeah.
Producer, writer, director. What I know you for the most is, trainer and gym owner and fighter and coach in Muay Thai, founder of Muay Thai America Gym. But man, you wear a lot of different hats, producer, writer, director, you're a commentator for Fighters Rep, and we're absolutely blessed to have you. And you also even do ring announcing. I mean, you do a little bit of everything. I feel like we're gonna have to go back and figure out what the source of all this creativity, what it is. You know what I mean?
Well, I love the fight game, and no matter what sport it is, whether it's boxing or Muay Thai, kickboxing, mixed martial arts, thumb wrestling, I mean, if it's a combat sport, I love it, and so I'm just so glad to be a part of it. And when you commentate or you ring announce, you get to see the fighters up close. You get to watch them grow. You get ringside seats and a paycheck. I mean, what more can you ask for?
I love it. And where did it all start for you, David? I mean, what kind of got you into the fight world and into the entertainment industry and everything else?
Well, as far as like the ring announcing and fight commentary, back in the days there were a bunch of smoker events, and smoker events were a place where gyms got together and they did unsanctioned fights, and they were regulated by some of the best coaches and instructors and best gyms, and it was an inter gym sparring thing.
Yeah.
And that happened, I think, and that stopped around 2006. I think that stopped then. And that's when CSAC said this is not a good thing going on. I think there was a lot of MMA smokers that happened at the same time, and people got injured. And, some got choked out, and then they let them go, and then their head hits the mat again.
Yeah.
And so they reported injuries, and then so smokers were outlawed. But during that time, I did a lot of, I went to this gym and did their commentary. I mean, they're ring announcing, and then I did another one, and it just kind of gravitated like that. But it's just been a lot of fun. And again, you get to see the martial arts community grow. You get to see those fighters bloom. I still see some fighters still competing now, and way back when. And then I get to see a lot of interesting prospects that come up through the game. So, and I enjoy the sport so much. I'm just a fan. So when you're a fan and you can get a chance to do this, it's just gravy and icing on top of the cake. So.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you've been in this game a long time, and you're the owner of Muay Thai America Gym. You've fought in the past. You've coached many, high level fighters that have fought, all over the world. But what kind of got you into fighting to begin with? I mean, is it something you grew up with, or did the bug just bite you later on in life? I mean, where'd you get into this?
So, growing up in the '60s, as a kid, because I'm going to be 62 in a couple months. It was a very tumultuous time. There was a lot of racism going on, and so when my parents, I moved from Hong Kong with my mom and dad. I was just a child, but when we were growing up, there was a lot of there's Asian hate crimes now. There was a lot of Asian hate crimes back then, and so we kind of grew up in a very bad neighborhood, in East Oakland, and we just had to, learn to fight. And my father was my original instructor. And so he just taught us how to defend ourselves. And we got into a lot of fights, and then after a while, he said, you got to stop fighting. I won't teach you guys anymore. So I actually sought a trainer and, studied like Chinese boxing, Chinese kickboxing, Sanda, Sanshao. And then, I did a few fights back in the early '70s. Mid '70s, the fight game was just exploding, but there wasn't a lot of fights yet, and it was very unregulated, and you would have fights, and right before you fight, you're negotiating with some other guy who maybe is a karate guy, and they go, oh, we don't want any leg kicks, and we don't want this, we don't want that, and you're negotiating up to that point. But things weren't sanctioned back then either, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
now you have so many great organizations right now, such as FightersRep and all these different opportunities for fighters to really grow. And I think it's just when I see the platform of it, the evolution of fighting for the athlete, there's so many more opportunities now. And I know a lot of people complain about, the sanctioning bodies and so on, but you need them. You need them because
yeah, yeah.
there has to be a set of rules, there has to be guidelines, and there has to be safety involved too. And so, right now, back then, if there may have been only like 3 fights during a year, and there's hundreds of people just trying to get those fights. Now
Yeah.
it's there's a fight almost every month, and it's great because it gives fighters an opportunity, a platform. I traveled around the world, and I've seen other countries and how they have fights, and some of these guys are like, they have like 70 fights and 80 fights, and not to mention Thailand, they have like 200 fights before they're 18, and
Yeah, yeah.
so now America's catching up, and I'm excited for that because Americans can catch up. We have some of the best coaches here in America. We have some of the best former champions that have come from Thailand or from Japan, and there's no excuse for why we can't have the best fighters, except we just need more fights for them to gain the experience to catch up with the rest of the world.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more. Before we get into that, though, I wanted to ask you. You said your dad was your first instructor. What was he teaching you? What art would you say it was? I know you founded Muay Thai America. Was he teaching you Muay Thai, or was it something else?
No, he was teaching Chinese boxing. So he was teaching us Chinese boxing, and his style was Hung Gar Kung Fu, and but we have to make it very practical because it had to be to defend ourselves against against other kids, and
Yeah,
so that's but when I sought another trainer, what happened in the early 70s, there were a bunch of Thai boxers that fought against these Chinese boxers, Chinese Kung Fu guys. And I think it was like 1972 or 73. And they all got knocked out in the first round. And so they claimed that the boxing gloves inhibited them. So 4 months later, they had another fight and they all got knocked out again in the first round, except for one who made it to the second round. So that spurred a whole like national movement for Chinese martial arts. And that's when they started modifying, developing Sanda and taking Sanchao and taking it to make it more of a competitive sport.
So it was the Chinese boxers that got knocked out, or the
The
Muay Thai?
Chinese boxers got knocked out.
Oh, I see.
The Thai boxers knocked out every one of the Chinese boxers,
Wow,
every
wow.
one of them, And so, you have a whole country that just like have this whole nationalist movement, So I think at 14 at the time. So I was training, with the team. And so we brought in a Thai boxer, Thai trainer, to learn how to fight Thai style so you can beat the Thai fighters, and more gradually you started learning that it's the conditioning, it's the amount of pain you take. Like I did a fight in New York, one of my last fights, and I fought a Thai boxer, and it wasn't in a ring, it was on a mat, and I remember him kicking my arms, and I'm using those the blocks, and his shin is digging to my forearms, and it's killing me, and so you kind of think like, okay, well, you got to rethink your training a little bit because
Yeah.
and so that's kind of thing. So more so that I didn't compete in Muay Thai, I competed Chinese boxing against the Thai, to fight the Thai boxers, but when I was training, we were training in art called Sanchao. So Sanchao, it's like kickboxing, but you can actually throw somebody. And I'm not talking about Muay Thai throw. You can lift somebody and suplex them and dump them and stuff like that. And so I think at the time I was fighting like 116 or something like that. And the weight categories were just really kind of crazy. It's just like, 115 to 125 or whatever. It's like 10-pound spreads. and I always get dumped. And back then the scoring is different. So the cleaner you throw somebody, the more points you would get. So you could be beating somebody with your hands and kicks and they dump you. If you dump somebody without falling down, you score very high. If you
Yeah.
dump somebody and you trip along with them, it doesn't score as much. You fall down with them at the same time, doesn't score a lot at all. So, it was a hard sport for me to compete in it. And then also too, you didn't have the now we have great teams that help each other and great coaches that kind of just put everything together. Back then, everybody was kind of jealous of each other, and they wanted you to win, but they didn't really want you to win because you're taking their opportunity. It's like no, and so I didn't have good team support, and that's the thing I emphasize with a lot of my students and other students too, man. Find a team, find a gym, find a coach that loves you, that was willing to give you the time. But you too, as a fighter, be a good teammate too. When you're done with your fight, help the next guy out. Give them an opportunity. Because the teamwork is so important. And I always say that only two people enter the ring, but it's the whole team that helps them over the ropes. And back then I didn't have good team support. I didn't have that at all. I was never world champion, never was a great fighter. I was a good fighter.
Yeah.
I thought I could be a lot better if I had, a good team support and, good gym behind you. But, that's a little bit different now. So, find a gym, find a place that you love and stick with them, stick with them and be a good teammate. That's the secret right now. So
For sure. I love it. Dropping those gems, man. Let them know, coach, that you've been in this game for a long time. I think you know what you're talking about, and that's part of the reason we got you commentating on these Fighters Rep shows, man. I love having you out there, man.
well, in the Fighters Rep show, I always say that, if the fights are good, my job is easy. And
Yeah.
so I have to give it to your matchmaking too, because you put on great fights. And if the fights are bad, I mean, we have nothing really to talk about. But
Right.
these fights they're just bangers, and they're really competitively matched up. And it gives us a lot to work with, and it gives us material to work with. So if the matchmaking and the fighters themselves are not good, we can't do our jobs. But the Fighters Rep shows have been so exciting, and I love kickboxing. I love Muay Thai. Don't get me wrong, I love Muay Thai, but I love every sport has its own respected rules, and they're designed for a specific reason. And when I've had a couple fighters, and we go to Tokyo and fight some of Japan's best in K1, and you go there and you're in a stadium of 40,000 people, and
Wow.
they're watching this sport. They just love it, and you can see why they love it, because one, I mean, sometimes it gets bloody, but nobody's getting cut with an elbow or so on. But the fact that there's no clinching, and the fighters if they get in trouble and they're in the corner, they got to fight their way out. They can't clinch their way out. They got to fight their way out.
Oh,
And it makes a very simple sport for the average layman to understand.
yeah.
Because a punch is a punch, a kick is a kick, a knee is a knee. I mean, when you watch Muay Thai and sometimes even mixed martial arts, if you don't understand the grappling aspects of it, or you don't understand the clinching aspects of it, sometimes for the average layman, it's very difficult to watch. So in kickboxing itself, I think you have fans that love the sport, but you have Mike the mailman, Pete the plumber, Nancy the school teacher. They'll gravitate, they'll watch the sport. And I've seen it. I've sat in the audience, watching the Tokyo Dome fill up, and there are people there and they look like housewives, and these guys are just bringing their shopping bag inside, watching it. And they're just average, and they don't practice, but they just love the sport. So, I love that aspect. And I love that fact that Fighters Rep is bringing kickboxing here.
I appreciate it. So, I mean, but there's the clinching, I guess, is limited. There is clinching, but it's only to throw a strike. Is that what it is? And then you kind of got to let go, right?
So in K1 now, they eliminate the clinching completely. There's no clinching at all.
Wow.
So you cannot even put one hand behind the neck or anything like that. I've been to another organization called Kunlun Fights in China, and the chairman would tell you, goes, if you touch the person's neck, you slow down the fight for any reason, you get a warning. The second
Wow.
time you get a second warning, a yellow card or whatever card, and then the third time you got to pay for you don't get your purse. You don't you got to pay for your fighter's purse. Yeah, they're joking, but you got to pay for your own flight,
That's funny.
and
That's
they don't
funny.
want anything to slow down the action. So they go, what is considered clinching? Anything that slows down, stops and stalls the action. So
Yeah.
that's why there's no leg kick, catching the leg. There's no, clinch at all. You can use one hand to throw a strike, but obviously one hand you can't really control anybody with, not for any length of time.
Yeah.
So and so it's designed so it's nonstop action, and because it's nonstop action, I think it appeals a lot to the common man.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Like, with our rule set, we've got the clinch where it's with one hand, you can throw a strike, and then you kind of gotta let go. Or, I guess if it's kind of like boxing too, right? As long as it's not two hands, it's one hand, as long as you're active,
Right.
they'll
Right.
let you go. But I think even with the traditional IKF unified rules, which are not the ones we use, ours is like a variation. But I think even the traditional IKF unified rules, you can clinch as long as it's active. If it's not active, they're gonna break you up. So I
Right.
appreciate that. We've talked about this before, David. I'm with you on that. I feel like if it's just clinching and there's no action going on,
Hmm. Hmm.
it really slows down the action. And I agree with you about the layman. I mean, I think people get turned off by clinching and grappling. I really do.
Well, also the reason why K1 eliminated the clinch completely was that it's subject to too much interpretation. It's like, how long are you clinching? Are you really stalling the action? Are you trying to create opportunities to strike? And so and we've seen controversy like on one championship, where Petrosian fought I can't remember who, Samanchai or I can't remember who, but
Yeah.
you see a lot of controversy on that, and because it's subject to so much interpretation, that's why they just said no clinch, period. Don't grab the person at all,
Yeah.
And so every time I go to K1 in Tokyo, I mean, like, there are a lot of knockouts. There are a lot of knockouts,
Yeah.
and so and
That's
everybody understands a knockout. So
yeah. And I feel like that's kind of happening on our show a little bit too, to the point where I'm getting a little bit worried sometimes. Yeah, you mentioned Sanshao, Sanda. That's kind of what you did more than anything. Am I right?
right, that's correct. Yeah, yeah. I think to be a good coach nowadays, I think the global village of fighting has become smaller, and you see fighters, from Holland and Germany and Eastern Europe, and so the fight styles have all kind of changed, and you have people that are doing martial arts from a Taekwondo background and a kickboxing and Muay Thai background, and I think right now fighting continually evolves. It continually evolves, and you look at UFC from when it first started, and every 10 years it keeps evolving. And I think you look at Muay Thai too, and it keeps evolving. Fighters fighting now that uh, don't fight the same way that back in the golden era of Muay Thai. And then before then, a lot of people talk about traditional Muay Thai and traditional Muay Thai, but you have to really think Muay Thai with boxing gloves has only been around almost 100 years. To be prior to, like, I think 1920, in the mid 20s or early 20s, somebody was killed by a punch to the throat, and they were wearing rope, and then so they
Oh,
modernized the sport. So when you talk about traditional Muay Thai in terms of the combat sport aspect of it, it's only been around with boxing gloves for about 100 years. But when you look at the fight styles, that they keep evolving. And when you start having athletes or fighters from different countries that have different fight styles, it becomes an amalgamation of fighting, and essentially that's what a lot of kickboxing is. People come from, even though it's kickboxing, some people come from Taekwondo backgrounds. You Claycomb, what is it, Michael Claycomb, karate
right. Yeah,
background, and
Shotokan karate
yeah,
practice.
yeah, and then some people with Muay Thai background, and they all come together, and I think to be a good coach now, you have to know a little bit of everything. And not that you're going to teach your fighter how to do it, but you have to show your fight how to defend against it, you know. And so you know, I've trained fighters, and then, you know, I'm holding pads with them, and all of a sudden I'll just throw a spin back kick at them. They're like, what do I do? You know, it's like, well, you know, obviously it's not a common technique, but it happens. So you got to know how to defend against it. And so, you know, the global village of fighting has gotten a lot smaller. So I think you need to know a little bit of everything, you know, to fight all these different styles. You know,
Would agree. You know, David, I'm actually thinking, and I love that we're having this conversation. I'm actually thinking, and of course, I want your opinion
mm-hmm.
of bringing back the traditional unified rules for the next show, not for December 3rd. December 3rd, we'll keep it as is, where you can do a one-handed clinch. But I almost like the idea of bringing back the two-handed active clinch, right? Meaning if you're not throwing a strike, they're breaking you up.
Right.
But if you're active, they'll let it go for 3 to 5 seconds before they break it up. And the reason I kind of want to do that is because, you know, it also goes back to what you're saying. I mean, this conversation's kind of surreal, because I don't think, you know, you were mentioning the American fighters and how we should be the best and how we just need more opportunity.
Mm.
And, you know, obviously that's what I think too, 100%. And I've been kind of talking to the IKF and trying to get it so that they'll let me do kickboxing tournaments, right? Because at the current rate, you know, let's say Fighters Rep were to do a show every 2 months, like we're doing now, 2.5 months. Let's say I could even get the frequency to once a month.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I still don't feel like that's enough fights for these guys to get the amateur experience they need to be great on
Right.
the world stage. You know what I mean? I'm looking at it from the lens of guys like Guillermo Rigondeaux, Vasily Lomachenko, you know, these boxers that have like hundreds of amateur fights. I feel like that's the only way to really get our guys to that level in
Mm-hmm.
this respective sport. So I've been trying to, you know, unify, get a uniform rule set.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So that whatever tournament they go to, and if we do the tournaments, that, you know, our guys will be able to compete in all the tournaments. You know what I mean? Just to have consistency across the board.
Right.
You know?
Right. You know, I think it's a good thing. I think you have to let the fighters know they have to prepare for it, you know? And so, and
Of course, yeah. I was thinking of maybe announcing it after this next show for the February show. You know, essentially the only difference would be you can now clinch with two hands and throw the strike instead of one. And if you're active and the person's countering you, they'll let it ride for 3 to 5 seconds. If not, they'll still break it up. And the other difference would be you can kick below the knee, which right now we don't allow for kicks at or below the knee.
Well, I mean, yeah.
What do you think though? Do you know, what do you think about something like that? I mean, do you think it'll stall the action?
Well,
Do you think it'll stall the action enough to like mess with the experience?
I think at one point, you know, K1 had that rule back in up to like 2006. Then they changed the rule where you could clinch with two hands, but you have to throw one strike and let go.
Yeah.
You could not hold on to the person.
Right.
So you know, it just and again, you know, you don't want to run to the controversy where, you know, they're clinching and maybe you're saying they're 3 to 5 seconds, but they're not throwing effective strikes, you know. And so you know, when I see clinching in Muay Thai and you know, around the world, they're very effective because they're trying to position for striking. Sometimes they see clinching in the United States and it looks like two guys just slow dancing, you know, and they're not really getting positioned to strike. And so, or they're too bent on trying to throw the other person. So, you know, I think that
well, throws wouldn't be allowed. Throws wouldn't be allowed.
Right. Definitely not. But I don't know. I think if you're going to do a two-hand clinch, it should be one strike and you have to let go. Yeah, you have to let go and then continue the action going. So that's my interpretation.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, I just, you know, I like the idea because I feel like that's how it is with the IKF, and
Mhm.
I would love for our guys to be competitive all around. And then we know it's like a fringe Olympic sport at this point, right? It's
Right.
on the same level as Muay Thai, kind of, and I'm thinking they would probably employ some sort of clinch if it got to the Olympics, and I
Mhm.
would love for our guys to be at that level. I'd also like to do our own sort of world championships, like because I feel like the Olympics, every time they touch anything, David, they kind of
Uh.
mess it up. They kind of mess it up.
Do I hear Fighters Rep Grand Prix coming into the mix, huh? Do
I
I
would
hear
love
that,
to do
huh?
I would love to do that in between our fight nights. I think that
Uh-huh.
would be a fantastic way for some of these guys to get 3, 4, even 5 fights in the course of a weekend and really make them competitive on the world stage?
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
those are just my thoughts. I wanted to ask you, I mean, how many fights did you have?
10. 10,
Wow.
10 fights,
Okay.
10 fights, and then um, and then you have to make money. Then you have to start. Then you start to earn a living, and it's you know a lot of fighters around the world are subsidized, or they can afford to fight. I know a lot of the athletes in China are subsidized, and obviously in Thailand you're fighting and you're in a camp, and the camp is paying for your living and so on. But fighters in America are doing it as a part-time job. There are a few that are doing it exclusively for a living. But that's going to be the hard thing of that. I think that's the only drawback that we have in terms of our fighters here in America. They're not subsidized, and so but the here I have a fighter now. I have a matchmaker trying to give me a fight for one of my fighters. So um, and so yeah, I didn't have a lot of fights, and again, I didn't have a good team, and I wish I could fought more, but I always loved the sport, and so opening this gym is it's just been I have friends that just they talk about how excited they are over the weekends to coach a little soccer team,
Right,
and
right,
and
right.
uh and I get to do it for a living, so
Man, yeah. You get to go to Tokyo for the 40,000 and coach people, and, no,
Yeah.
it's amazing what you do, and, guys, if this is your first time joining us, be sure to subscribe, like, comment below. Any questions you have for David or myself, feel free to drop it down there. Give us a follow on Instagram at FightersRep, and definitely follow the legendary David Huey on Instagram at Muay Thai America. If you want to go get some of that authentic training, you can also, hit him up at Muay Thai America on Instagram and come see him and get some of that special sauce that he's serving out there. Um, yeah, so you mentioned people are hitting you up, David, for fighters. I'm one of those people. Not only do you commentate with us, which we're blessed to have you, but you are providing us with fighters pretty consistently. And on this card coming up, you've got Jacob Dolbetsian on the card.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
that's pretty exciting. Kind of tell me, how's your experience been, with Fighters Rep? I mean, I'd love to hear what you think about the organization so far.
Well, you know, I've seen Fighters Rep grow, and from the what is that, the Apex Center, or what? Not the
Aim,
Apex Center,
Aim
the name
Sportsplex.
center.
Yeah.
That's right. And then to that ballroom of the Commerce Casino upstairs on the second floor, and now to that main mega tent they have going on. And I've seen the production value grow too, and I see what you do with the media too, with them promoting the fighters and so on. I'm excited, because I see a growing organization, and I see an organization promoting the fighters too, because it's not just the fights. Fighters have to market themselves.
Yeah.
They have to become a personality. They have to become um, uh, either likable or disliked. But either way, you have to be like a Mayweather. You either want to see him win or see him lose, but either way, you'll see him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to be that, and I think Fighters Rep is providing that platform. But to have an organization that's solely kickboxing, and you know having that, and it's not a hybrid, thing where some it's Muay Thai and something it's Muay Thai with no elbows, and then some it's only kickboxing on one card. It becomes a little bit confusing for the average fan,
I
you know.
agree. Yeah, I agree.
But when you see something like Fighters Rep, where it's pure kickboxing and great action too, and the replays and the little clips that end up back on social media and the slow motion and all that stuff, I think it's a great platform, and you yourself are building your fan base on that, and fighters are building their fan base, and so it's a great platform, and I want to see Fighters Rep on a big platform, on prime time, baby. So that's what I'm hoping. So
I appreciate it, David. It's great having you as a commentator, man. You do such a fantastic job. And we've got so much knowledge in you. And now with Chris Cully, kind of doing the
yeah,
color commentary with you. Oh
Chris
my
is
God.
Chris is great, man. And he told me, first time he goes, "What should I say? I don't know what I should say." Man, just be you, but don't be too much you, But he is great, in terms of like calling the fights and calling little dynamics and seeing things. So,
Yeah.
he is truly what we call a color commentator. He adds a lot of flavor, a lot of tints and tidbits and stuff like that as a commentator, and he's fought across many platforms of combat sports, and so he adds that little bit of knowledge in there too. And so this past show that we did together, working for the first time, it was just a pleasure.
It was amazing. You guys were like incredible, man. I feel like sometimes commentators, especially on these regional shows, is just like they're there just because they're there. You know what I mean? They're there just to say we have commentators. But you and Chris on that last show, I was learning, I was laughing, I was feeling everything. And you guys were hilarious about it. There was one where you told him to swipe right when he was complimenting Nate Gaston. I almost fell off my chair when I heard you swipe right. I mean, it was just
well,
too much fun.
and then you really have to think about it as it's a fight sport, but we're doing sports entertainment, and
Yeah.
we're providing entertainment. We're providing entertainment with the fighters. Hopefully they'll put on an entertaining show. I mean, we're providing entertainment with lighting and sound, and we want to entertain and educate. So if for Chris and I, for us to be commentators, if we can, educate, inform, and entertain, then that's really our job.
Oh yeah. I mean, you guys checked off all of those boxes easily. Again, it was for me, it was by far the best commentary we've ever had on a Fighters Rep
We're
card.
gonna get better. We're gonna
And
get
I
better.
can't wait to see what you guys come up with, especially coming up here December 3rd at Fighters Rep 16. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
What are you thinking about this upcoming Fighters Rep card? With Claycomb taking on Rivera for this first ever sort of middleweight title, ending off the year and then going into another Pro-Am event in
You know,
February.
I like Claycomb and his unpredictable style, and I keep talking about uh, um, kickboxing being an amalgamation of different disciplines coming together, and that's an example of how, like, to beat the style, you got to learn the style. You gotta kind of know. You can't just say, I'm just going to impose my will, which yes, it's the right idea, but every art and discipline has its advantages and disadvantages. And so what I like about a fight like this is that you have to, it's almost like a fast moving speed chess match, and then in between the rounds, the corners have to be like expert chess players too. And
Right.
so the strategy keeps changing. When I watch a fight, I not only watch the fighters, but I also watch the coaches and see what kind of instruction they're giving, to because the fighter fights the same rounds time after time, and he's not making adjustments and so on. Then they're not doing the right thing. But I think this one's Clay Combs he's got a style, and Vert's gonna have to kind of figure it out, and so and actively figure it out, and so we can watch the fight, and sit there, but we're not in the game where you got to fight, take hits, and so on, and then figure out the game too. So I'm excited for that fight,
Right. Yeah, you make the wrong move in there, and it's what Chris Cully would call a trip to the shadow realm. And we had a few of those at the last card. So, I'm
Oh
definitely
yeah.
looking forward. I'm looking forward to this one. Yeah, I think the last card, David, I think we had 21 fights, which was outrageous. We won't be doing that again, but we'll probably be limited to 18 now with the commission's new rules, which I'm happy with.
Uh-huh.
But we had 9 I mean, that's almost half of the
Yeah.
card
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
knockouts. I mean, it was
Yeah.
wild in there last time. So
Yeah. Well,
if you
I'm
guys
excited for bring the pros back, man. The pros back, So I'm not. I mean, if I can speak honestly, I'm not a real fan of the California Athletic Commission, and but as long as I've been in the game, the only people who are guaranteed to make money in the game is the commission. So
right, right.
and but I'm excited that there's pro parts of this, and you know when you give an audience a share of amateur fights and you give them a share of pro fights, I mean that is just that is those they see the difference, but they also see the quality fights, and then also it gives them just a wide range of appreciation for the game.
Oh yeah, and it's like having college and pro football on the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
card. These
yeah,
guys fighting out of passion, and then these guys fighting for money, and maybe also some passion because there's still not a ton of money in the fight game as far as kickboxing goes. But we are getting there. I do think we're getting there, and I do think the more of these shows we do, the closer we're getting to it. The crowd, seems to be getting bigger every time. That's something I'm really excited about.
So I have a challenge for the people watching here. So if you know Fighters Rep and you've seen the sport, I want you guys to introduce one new person to this sport. Just one, okay? All right. And they'll fall in love with it. And then you challenge them to bring another person into this. And that's how the sport is going to grow, because it is just pure excitement, And so, I mean, I love mixed martial arts and I love watching it, but sometimes I only see like 3 or 4 good fights out of a whole card.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you, on the kickboxing match, every one of them is exciting. Every one of them is exciting.
I
So
know. I
and you don't
know.
need to understand what they're doing on the ground. You don't need to understand that. So
And these kids we got, I mean, not to toot our own horn, but these kids we've got fighting at Fighters Rep, I mean, they've got personality, man. They've got
yeah,
charisma,
right.
they've got technique, they've got power and speed, and it's amazing to watch some of these personalities in there go at it. Like one that really stands out to me, it was that David Death Dealer Marquez, man. After
Uh-huh.
his fight, remember when him and Yadir Perez knocked each other down a couple times?
Right, right, right.
And then, he ended up getting the finish, and Joshua Shibata, big shout out to our announcer, Joshua Shibata. He's in there asking him, how'd you feel? And David was like, just shaking his head like, get up and fucking get that shit, baby. Come on. I just thought that was an epic one-liner, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
So
you really get these guys' personalities. That's part of the reason I like putting them on camera and interviewing them and talking to them, because for me, half the intrigue is the personality. It's not just
yeah,
going in there and fight. It's who is this guy? Who is
right.
this girl?
And that's how you build the fan base. You have to get to know them, and you have to cheer for them or cheer against them, but whatever it is, otherwise they're just fighters.
Yeah,
And I mean, like, Rocky Balboa is not and it's a movie, of course, but he's not the greatest fighter. But man, at the end you get to know Rocky Balboa, and you just want him to make it to the bell. You just want
right,
him to make it
right,
to the bell
right.
because you know him.
Yeah.
Him through the film. So
And speaking of dislike, guys, I feel like we need more heels. I would love some heels. I want to see who's gonna be our first real heel, because we've got a lot of interesting personalities, but most of them are guys you want to cheer for. But I feel like it would be fun to have a guy that people really dislike. You know what I mean? That'd be hilarious. David, so what do you kind of got going on right now? I know you got Victor Saravia. He's one of your pros. I'd love to see him at the Lions Den at some point. I know you're training a bunch of amateurs. One of them is on this December 3rd Fighters Rep card. Get your tickets at FightersRep.com. But, what else do you have, going on right now? Any other pro fighters we should be looking out for? Amateur fighters? Anything else you got that you're working on?
No, I'm just working with the same group of guys, and I'm actually slowing down now. So, my wife and I got married last year. My wife and I bought property out in Joshua Tree. So every
Congrats.
weekend we're out in the desert. We're working on our homes, out there. And so I'm actually not taking on any more new fighters, per se. And so looks like I'm gonna try to slow down a little bit from the fight game, But the ones that I'm working with, they're just great, and I'm just excited to be part of their journey. So, yeah.
Yeah. And you planning to move out to the desert full time, or is this just a vacation spot?
No, it's just a money making spot. So,
I see.
because I'm not making millions off of Muay Thai.
Right. And I brought up Victor Saravia, man. What's in store for him? Because I'm real interested in that guy. I mean, that guy's is an amazing
Yeah.
fighter.
So, I just got it when during this podcast, I just got an offer for him to fight, and he's been switching to boxing. Victor's had a rough ride in boxing. What we were training with uh, John Arthur Pops, and he passed away. And we had a lot of things lined up, and then Pops has been working. He worked with James Toney, and so we got a lot of tidbits from him. And then,
Yeah.
but when he passed away, I had to find a new trainer. One of the things about being a good coach is to know your limitations, and I don't have the boxing background that I believe Victor should have. I know what he needs as a fighter, but I don't have all the tricks and training tricks and the experience to give him that. So I've been
Right.
trying to find him a good trainer. We've been through a few different trainers, but it hasn't like clicked the same way, like the way he and I click.
Yeah.
And so we're still trying to find that right now. And but he's talking about possibly going back to kickboxing. They love him in Tokyo. And the reason why we switched to boxing was when the pandemic hit, they weren't bringing any more fighters to Japan because of COVID. And so they kept all the fighters local in Japan. Now they're opening back up again. So we kind of play around and tease with it. I'm also for me to be a good coach, I have to protect my fighter too. So I don't really like them jumping around from discipline to discipline. But if you're going to do a kickboxing fight, then that's all you do for that time. You're not training for a boxing fight or MMA fight or anything like that. That's all you're doing, And so, so I'm not really sure, where it's going to go right now. But I do want to keep him in the boxing game. I think he has a lot of potential. We just haven't found the right. It just haven't all clicked yet. So, but I truly believe in him. So.
Yeah, no, he looks like I mean, he's definitely got good hands, for a guy who was a Muay Thai fighter. And that's part of the reason I would love to see him in some more kickboxing. He did a kickboxing event as well, or some kickboxing fights, you said, in Japan. Is that right?
Yeah, he's been in. We've done K1 several times. We've done Crush out there, several times. And see, another thing too, at 126 pounds, there's a lot of pro fighters for him to fight in Tokyo. 126 is not that many pro fighters for him to fight in America. So but in boxing, there's a lot of featherweights for him. So.
Yeah.
That's one of the other reasons. He's truly a professional athlete, and it's what he does for a living. So.
And I just feel like boxing is just, I don't know. I feel like every fight somebody's getting set up. So I don't know how I love boxing.
That's a whole
I
different
love
podcast.
I absolutely love boxing, David. I'm a huge boxing fan. But
Right.
I just feel like the way the sport's put together, from a promotional standpoint, is
Uh-huh.
just so bad. It's so
Yeah.
corrupt. I mean, guys, they're always looking to set someone up. So I get scared when a member of the striking community ventures off into that part of the ocean. David, man, I really, I've kept you for almost 45 minutes now, man. I
Okay.
really appreciate your time. I can't wait to see you at the next Fighters Rep. I can't wait to hear you commentate our shows. I got to ask you a couple things, though, before I let you go.
Okay.
How long do you think it is before we reach an arena? That's my
Well,
first question. Do you think we'll ever be able to reach an arena the way kickboxing in Japan has?
I think, well, I think, I do agree. I think so. I think because Glory's kind of not doing shows here in America anymore, and it's it's hard to say, but with people like you that are dedicated to the sport, that are bringing it out there, and with media, and again, it's sports entertainment, but part
Yeah.
of the entertainment comes with education and just showing people, the sport, and then have them fall in love with it and following it, and so it's hard for me to say, but hopefully in the next 5 years, man, we'll be like, rocking big places, and
That would
so
be amazing. That would be amazing. Not that we don't love the Commerce Casino. I mean, it does. It's a beautiful venue. It seats, man, over 1,500 people or so, and we're packing that house, and it's amazing. But I do think getting to an arena at some point would be an incredible milestone. I also wanted to ask you, is there anyone you want to shout out? Is there anything you wanted to say? The floor is yours before we let you go back to living the life out there in Joshua Tree, brother.
well, I'm telling you, fighters and coaches, if you want this sport to grow, man, make it part of your journey too, And again, it's that challenge to bring other people in that haven't seen this sport, bring them in on it, give them an opportunity, buy them a ticket, make them a guest, and that's the way that's the way it's going to grow, because it's all the elements, all the excitement of that, and there's no reason why this sport can't be as big as, the UFC or just regular boxing. There's no reason why it can't be. So I'm gonna have that challenge of all the fighters out there. You're earning commission on a ticket. Give a ticket to somebody. That somebody you don't think that would that doesn't practice martial arts, but would enjoy, a combat sport, and help help this sport grow, and together we can make it. So I think that's the challenge for everybody out there.
I love that challenge, David. I love that you're doing that. And I agree, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Find a friend, introduce them to Fighters Rep, and introduce them to kickboxing. And let's see you there on December 3rd at the beautiful Commerce Casino. It's going to be another crazy night. And if you can't make it physically, you can watch it for just $9.99 a month by joining the YouTube channel. And you'll get to hear David Huey and Chris Cully do their thing on the commentary. You won't want to miss it. Trust me.
All right, thank you
David,
so much.
thank you
Yeah.
so much, man. I appreciate your time.
Okay, brother. All right,
All
peace
right,
out.
man.
All
Have
right.
a good
All
one.
right,
See
bye.
you soon, brother.